His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Hare Krishna. So, well, at least for this morning, we didn't pick a verse. Talked with Prabhu yesterday, so of course I've come here. We're here for a few days, my wife and I, and been traveling around. We left Vrindavan on May 7th. I think now it's something like June 27th, I guess, June 27th. So for the last 7 weeks, we started out in Australia. This year, every year, of course, but this year has been the 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada visiting Australia. It began in Perth, Australia. There in Perth, Prabhupada stayed for 10 days. He was there for 10 days because they had just purchased a property in Melbourne, a new temple in Melbourne, Australia. And they were going to be installing Sri Sri Gaur-Nitai. But it wasn't quite ready yet for the day they were going to open it up. So they had Prabhupada go to Perth, Australia. Perth is on the coast, like most cities in Australia. It's on the coast, on the west coast of Australia. Very pretty area. And so Prabhupada stayed there for 10 days. And they invited me to come to Perth, Australia, because I was fortunate enough to be with Srila Prabhupada at that time. And also when we went to Melbourne, I was with Srila Prabhupada when he installed Sri Sri Gaur-Nitai there in the new temple. Temple room was about a little longer than this temple room. When Prabhupada entered the temple room, first thing he said was, this temple room is small. At the time, of course, devotees had come from all over Australia. There was over 100 devotees there by 1975. Australia's, if anyone here has been to Australia, that's what Australia is like. You don't go to Australia, it's not on the way to anywhere. That's why it's called down under. Literally, Prabhupada went to Australia every year from 1971 onwards, 72, 73. 6 times he went to Australia, though it was down under. And to get there was at least 15 hours on the flight. The first time I went with Srila Prabhupada to Australia, he was installing the deities, Padaballabha deities. It's like you see, you have your deities here. Well, these deities, they were also marble, and they were not as big. Krishna, Radha, Krishna, they were about this size. And myself and Bali Murdan, we carried them to Australia. We literally carried them. There was transit, flight was in transit. So when we, from India, from Delhi, got on the plane, we had them in our hands. We got onto the airplane. Prabhupada always sat at the window seat. And generally I would sit next to him. But now I was carrying Srimati Radharani. So Srimati Radharani, she was next to Srila Prabhupada, right on the seat. At that time, planes were generally never full, so there would always be seats. So she was standing there on the seat next to Srila Prabhupada. Bali Murdan had Krishna deity. And I believe when about halfway there, we had to stop, go through transit, sit in the transit lounge, of course, take the deities off. They were sitting there in the transit lounge. And again, I was always right next to Srila Prabhupada, but now I'm there, Srimati Radharani's there, and we're just sitting there. And at one point, Prabhupada just looked at me. He said, Krishna is very pleased with your service. I was with Prabhupada a long time, over 2 years. I never heard him say that before. He was pleased, Krishna was pleased, or he was pleased. Sometimes he would say I made something. He liked my sandesh very much. He never told me, but I had different devotees. Just last December in Govardhan Eco Village, Janani Vas told me a story, giving Prabhupada sandesh. And Prabhupada said, oh, this is first class. Who made it? I said, oh, Sruta Kirti made it, Prabhupada. I said, oh, very good. Didn't say it to me. Prabhupada was like that. Usually to you, he would chastise you. He would criticize you. And the very first times as a servant, oh, he chastised me so much. Called me a malecha. It was in Los Angeles. We all know, of course, when I joined Srila Prabhupada, I had been in the temple. My base was New Vrindavan. So I was in New Vrindavan for 16 months. Received initiation, first initiation after 3 months, 1971. That was the criteria. You were in the temple for 3 months. And if you were a young man, young boy, you joined the temple, you put on saffron. First day you were in the temple, you become a brahmachari. So there in New Vrindavan, 3 months. From New Vrindavan, which is near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we drove to New York. I was just in New York a few weeks ago. We drove to New York, Henry Street Temple in Brooklyn, New York. And there I received first initiation from Srila Prabhupada. I may as well kind of try to go chronologically here, my time with Srila Prabhupada over the next few days. And at that time we always drove places. So from New Vrindavan to New York City was about 8 hours. And the temple room was much like this, about the size of this, without the little extension over there. So a small temple room. It was a townhouse. In New York they called them townhouses, all connected, side by side, maybe 4-story building. And this would be the first time I saw Srila Prabhupada. We heard about him every day in the temple, New Vrindavan, wherever you were. And when I joined Prabhupada, I saw that more and more. Whenever anyone would see me, what did Prabhupada say? There would be right outside his door, men, women, boys and girls, youngsters, all us youngsters, what did Prabhupada say? Especially if they heard voices coming from the other side of the doorway. What did Prabhupada say? So in New Vrindavan, when I joined, I heard about Prabhupada. The first thing I heard was Prabhupada was in Russia. This was 1971, right? Spring, April, May 1971. Prabhupada was in Russia for about 1 week, 10 days. He initiated one person. He gave first initiation to one person, one young man in Russia that they were able to bring to the temple. Shyamsundar, I think Aravinda, he also went on that trip. Just one person. Prabhupada spoke to him every day, maybe 3 days, for about an hour, explained the philosophy to him. The power of the pure devotee. One person. You can't say maybe he was just a regular person there. He was searching, he was inquisitive. But Prabhupada planted a seed in him. His determination to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. I told a little story yesterday. I was at a temple outside Paris, in Paris area. I went there for the first time since I was with Prabhupada, 1973, for the deity installation in Paris. I'm sure all of you have seen the videos, Srila Prabhupada there at the installation, rubbing Srimati Radharani's cheek. They had covered her cheek, had a little mark, what do you call it, a little freckle, like a little freckle on her cheek. So that they had covered it over, but in the process of Abhishek bathing, it became exposed. So Prabhupada was there, he was touching Srimati Radharani's cheek like that. I've been here a few times to this temple. I was here last time, maybe 16, around 2008, and 2009, like that, quite some time ago. But I came here a few times, but I never stopped in Paris on the way here. So I was determined. So yesterday we managed, I got to see Sri Radha Parasishwara yesterday for the first time, 52 years. Anyway, there in New Vrindavan, Krishna book was there. So that's how we were learning about Krishna. In the West, we didn't know anything about Krishna. Krishna is God. I was raised Catholic boy. My parents were Italian descent. So of course you were Roman Catholic, went to Catholic school, Catholic grade school, Catholic high school. Even the university I went to was also Catholic university. When I was about 8 years old, so I was in my 3rd year of grade school, one of the nuns looked at me and thought I would be a good altar boy. You know, when the priest would do mass, you had the altar boys. So first time I was ringing bells, I was 8 years old on the altar. That was my first pujari work, an altar boy. Anyway, in New Vrindavan, we would hear about Prabhupada's activities. And one of the first things I heard was about Prabhupada's lota. We didn't know what a lota was. Nowadays, Neither no one knows what a lota is. Later on, when I went to India, everyone has a lota. It's part of your outfit. You have a lota. Would be under Prabhupada's desk. It's what you take to the bathroom. Bell metal. Prabhupada's lota was bell metal. But we would hear these different phrases in those days, back 50 years ago. And that was one of the first ones I heard. Time, place, and circumstance. We know that in Krishna consciousness. We use that a lot nowadays. when we want to make adjustments, how things are done. Srila Prabhupada did like this. Well, time, place, and circumstance. 50 years ago. That was then. This is now. We were saying that while Prabhupada was here. Time, place, and circumstance. And it referred to the lota. Prabhupada's lota. And the story was, we heard in Russia when I was young. I remember young in school, you would have these drills. Just in case the Russians were going to bomb us. You know? And when you would hear those sirens, we had this practice drill. So the way we were going to protect ourselves was you went under the desk. Like that was going to save you from a bomb going under your desk. But that, of course, that was planted in your head as a child. Huh? These demons on the other side of the world. For us, it was always demons have to be there. And they have to keep us safe. The government's going to keep us safe from the demons. So I heard, in Russia they stand in line just to get food, just to get rice, just to get milk, just to get sugar. And there was Shyama Sundar. It was a Sunday. He was standing in line there in Moscow. Had his ticket, little coupon. And that day, what did he get? He got rice, he got milk, and he got sugar. So what do? You make sweet rice. They made sweet rice. So this is what we're hearing in New Vrindavan. Thousands, 10,000 kilometers away or more. This was going on. Even though there was no phones back then, huh? No smartphones, no telephone use. Prabhupada, we all know the stories of Prabhupada and the telephone. I think there's something like 20,000 photographs of Srila Prabhupada in the archives. 20,000 different photographs. I found one, Srila Prabhupada on the telephone. One photograph of Prabhupada on the telephone out of 20,000 photographs. He didn't like the telephone. He didn't like us using the telephone. And of course, Prabhupada told the story way back in New York. Yes, the Bowery, when he was in the Bowery area. The Bowery was where all the drunkards were. And this is where Prabhupada began his mission after leaving Butler, PA, in the Bowery. I also saw that a few weeks ago. Satirtha, a holy place, wherever Srila Prabhupada placed his lotus feet. Satirtha, this place, such a wonderful tirtha. So we heard he made sweet rice, but after they made it, cooked it in the pot, they didn't have anything to put it in. They put it in the lota. Time, place, and circumstance. This is what we would hear. It didn't mean a lot to me at that time, but we knew this lota is what Prabhupada took to the bathroom. It's not what you put sweet rice in. Time, place, and circumstance. There was nothing else. Prabhupada said, put it in the lota. So these are the stories. Anything we heard about Srila Prabhupada, you would become ecstatic. Just a few days in the temple. Everyone was living off of hearing about Srila Prabhupada at those days in the temple. Just what Prabhupada did this, Prabhupada said that. Prabhupada went to Russia. Imagine, he planted a seed in one devotee. How many Russian devotees are there now? 50 years later, 55 years later, thousands and thousands. Everywhere you go, any temple you go to, you're going to find devotees from Russia. Wonderful devotees. He could do that. This is the power of the pure devotee. Some of us, we've been here 40 years, 50 years, more than 50 years, chanting our rounds, waiting for the day when we can hear Krishna Balaram say something to us, when we see them in a special way, waiting for the day. But the pure devotee, if he wants, boom, just like that. That was also in video in Australia. Thanks to one devotee in Australia, they told me his name didn't have a devotee name. He took all these different videos you see, Srila Prabhupada in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, giving classes, kirtans, talking in his room, to professors, to politicians, to lawyers. All one devotee took all these videos. But Prabhupada could just like that put Krishna right in someone's heart. That devotee, if you know, another devotee, he wrote that book, Salted Bread. You hear about the difficulties they went through in Australia. Government didn't appreciate Prabhupada being there. Even his going there, everything by Krishna's arrangement. When he went there, last thing they wanted to see come into that country was religious literature. And of course, when Prabhupada entered in his dhoti, kurta, they knew he was something different, some kind of monk. And they were going through his things, and a bunch of papers spilled out, distracted everyone from Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. Everyone became distracted and they just let him in. I went to Russia for the first time in 2007. I wasn't there with Srila Prabhupada. I was in the temple, New Vrindavan. But I've always wanted to go to the different temples Srila Prabhupada went to. Not the different temples, different cities, different towns. I wanted to see where he went, where he placed his lotus feet, and what happened because of that. So Russia was on that list. I got to go the first time in 2007. And of course, I went to Moscow, and there was, that time, Russian festival. They're having a Ukraine festival. The week after that was the Russian festival. And there were hundreds, thousands of devotees by 2007. And I was looking at all the devotees in the room, and I said, all of you had association with Srila Prabhupada when he was there back in 1971. Somehow or other, you had Prabhupada's association as he was walking there in Red Square. Maybe you were a bird, a bee, maybe you were an insect you tread on. Somehow or other, you had contact with him, got to hear the holy name from him. I take everything very, very personally. That's one thing I learned from Srila Prabhupada. Everything is personal. No accidents. We know, even Prabhupada said, not a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Supreme Lord. So there are no accidents. But I made it very personal. I said, you're all here because somehow you had association with Prabhupada while he was there. And Prabhupada knew that as well. Around the world, we always say 14 times around the world. Prabhupada said 15 times. He told one man, this is my 15th time, he said, around the world. So we'll say 15 times Srila Prabhupada went around the world. You know his main business is what? Translating his books. What's he doing? Traveling around the world 15 times. Why didn't he just sit there in the world headquarters, Los Angeles? Stay in a beautiful building Ambarish Prabhu, Alfred Ford bought in Hawaii. He could translate day and night. Weather was perfect. Drinking coconut water every day. Why didn't he just stay there to do his translation work? He always said it was the most important thing, translating his books. Or he would always tell his leaders, when he established the GBC, the 12 GBC, your business is to do as I'm doing. You travel around, Told them, you travel to the temples. You instruct them. You see they're following. This is what I'm doing. You do it so I can do my translation work. So why is he traveling around the world 15 times? He knew wherever he put his lotus feet, he was changing that place. I went just before the lockdown. It was in 2019, 2020. I went to Africa for the first time. I went to Mauritius for the first time. Prabhupada went there just after I left him, 1975. Went to Mauritius, and he went to South Africa, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, all these places, placing his lotus feet in all of these different places. Of course, everywhere I saw he went, a temple is there. He planted a seed and a temple sprung up. Devotees sprung up from Prabhupada placing his lotus feet, traveling around the world again and again. I was with him 1975. 2 months he traveled around the world. 2 months, visited 14 temples in 2 months. In South Africa, he was in Johannesburg, and then there was this area outside. He went there, spoke some days. There was a temple there. Then he went another hour away, some little town somewhere. He was invited by the Indian Hindu community. They invited him to come there. He gave one class, spent 1 hour there. There's a temple there. This is who we're connected to. Srila Prabhupada said everything is personal. We're all here. Somehow or other, Srila Prabhupada touched us, our hearts. He connected by some desire, some good fortune. We got to Kirti somehow or other. Srila Prabhupada, he infected us with Krishna. It's personal. When I was with Prabhupada as his servant, was in New York City. And then we went, Los Angeles was the world headquarters, 1972, 1973, New Dwarka, Rukmini Dwarkadish. Had a head pujari. Her name was Shilavati. She was known as the head pujari of the whole society. People would come from all over to get instructions from Shilavati. Prabhupada instructed her on deity worship. And they would come to hear from her. Shilavati, she had 2 boys. And she had no husband with her at that time. 2 young boys, they also were interesting. They were around 10 years old. So she was a little older than most of us. She just passed away in New Vrindavan last year. She was in her 90s. She went back to New Vrindavan. Devotees there, Malati, they were taking care. Shilavati. Prabhupada, some of the first instructions he gave in deity worship were to his female disciples, Jamuna and Shilavati. They were the ones that were passing on those instructions to others. Anyway, while I was Prabhupada's servant, of course, every day, Prabhupada very, very regulated. One thing I learned back then, 1971, you would hear about the pure devotees. We would hear Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He recorded everything. He recorded his schedule. Some of us were familiar a bit of his schedule. He had times, certain times he did translation work, certain times he would be writing. At certain times he would chant his rounds. He put down when he took rest, a few hours here, an hour here. Like that. His schedule was very regulated. Prabhupada didn't write down what he was doing. He was writing down, Krishna was saying in all of his books. He said there's Krishna's words. But I got to see he was also very regulated. His schedule. You could go wherever you went. There wasn't an adjustment. As we went from city to city, country to country, 5 time zone differences, sometimes 10-hour differences from where he was in one place to where he was. But there wasn't an adjustment in his schedule. The only adjustment was on his watch. As soon as he arrived, he set his watch to the local time, and you picked up the schedule. If he flew for 20 hours from one place to another, from New York City to go to Delhi, to arrive in Vrindavan, 11 hours difference, 22 hours, airplanes and airports and cars. And in India, you always arrive sometime around midnight, and your flight leaving out of India at 1 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock at night, always like that. Difficult for the average person, having these kind of hours, jumping from one time to another time. It's not easy. Prabhupada just set his watch, that was it. We left New York City, 22, 25 hours in the air and in airports. You arrive in Delhi, 1 o'clock in the morning. You would get to where he was staying, not a temple. There were no temples in Delhi at that time. There was no temple in Vrindavan, no temple in Juhu, no temple in Mayapur, 1972, 1973. Staying at someone's house in a room. We would be staying in another room, sometimes staying in the hallways. His servant, you had to be within the sound of his bell. So he's sitting here, you have to be 5 meters away, the most, otherwise you wouldn't hear the bell. So you're just sitting outside the door, waiting for him to ring the bell. But if he arrived at this place 2 o'clock in the morning, you knew when the sun rose, 6 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be on the morning walk. Didn't matter that you just flew 25 hours. This morning you saw me arrive here 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning after flying from USA. We just got adjusted to the time zone in USA from Australia. By the time we got adjusted, it was time to go to the next place to come here. Another 6-hour difference. Your body starts going crazy. Don't know when to sleep. You don't know when to get up. Prabhupada, had no effect. Set his watch, 6 o'clock in the morning, time for the morning walk. His servant, I had no choice. I had to be awake. Others in the party, in his entourage, they could be sleeping very nicely. Secretary, Sanskrit editor. But they couldn't be sleeping very nicely. Prabhupada would say, where are they? Where's this one? Where's that one? Time for the morning walk. If you traveled with Prabhupada, he expected you to be with him whenever he was outside of his room. If he was on the morning walk, you have to be on the morning walk. Because if he's going to say something, you should hear it. You see, Prabhupada, his humility, how he would say things. Never said he was devotee. Prabhupada said, we don't say we're devotees. We're servants. He said, you can say you're a servant of Krishna. We don't claim ourselves as devotees. Prabhupada knew what he was doing. He knew he was the person who was going to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world. 15 times, traveling as many cities as he could fit into his schedule, he went to. Because wherever he put his lotus feet, he changed the atmosphere in that place. Everywhere he went. So we'd be on the morning walk. Sometimes people, his disciples, 19 years old, 22 years old, they wouldn't go on the morning walk. It was too tiring. Prabhupada, wasn't a casual walk. It was speed walking until he would stop abruptly. And you had to be in tune with Prabhupada's steps. That's devotee. That's a follower. Had to be attentive. He would walk so quickly and he would have his cane. If he was talking, wanted to make a point, boom, he'd stop. Sometimes people behind him, they bump into him. Sometimes even his feet, his lotus feet, Prabhupada turn around. Very bad. It was very bad. You had to be so attentive. That's Krishna consciousness. It's what I learned as personal servant. You had a lot of opportunity to understand what it meant to be conscious, Krishna conscious, every moment. Not sometimes. Not your schedule. I have my work schedule here. I do my service from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., whatever it is. In Vrindavan, and so many hundreds of devotees, 600 devotees under the care of the temple, living inside, living outside. They all have their service. They all have schedules. Schedules? Prabhupada's schedule is 24 hours a day. Devotional service. That was the schedule. No interruption. Isn't that what we say? No interruption. One time there in Los Angeles, he was walking up the stairs to his room. And there was a bead bag hanging on a doorknob at the bottom of the stairs. The hallway was there at the bottom of the stairs. He looked at me. He said, "Whose bead bag is there?" Crying. Crying. Personal. Very next day, we're walking up the stairs. There was a plate, prasadam, paper plate, like we have now, same thing, paper plate sitting there, just sitting on a table. Prabhupada stopped, looked at me. "Who's left their prasadam there?" Crying on the table. Crying. Personal. Everything is personal. We say Krishna is everywhere. He's the supreme person. Everything is personal. There's no, this is not important. Krishna Balaram Mandir, walking around in the morning, and there was at the back of the temple area, there's life membership offices on both sides. Oh, so many life members. So many people coming in, donating in Vrindavan. That's one thing, Hindu culture. They know you donate. Don't donate to Krishna, don't donate to anyone, demigod, but donate because the returns are very good. Very good returns. Better than the stock market. I put 500 rupees in the hundi. I'm going to get back 5,000, 50,000 rupees in return. That culture is there. But it's early in the morning, there's no one in that room. But the fan is on, spinning. Prabhupada, look. He said, "I have to travel 10,000 miles to tell you to turn off the fan?" That was Prabhupada. Attentive, every detail, everywhere. The habit in India, people are fortunate. Even poor people, they have cleaners come in, clean their place, a few rupees a day or whatever it would be. Anyone would have a cleaner come in, clean their house, sweep the floors, mop the floors. And then what did they do after they mop the floors? Turn on the fans. Every house in India, there's fans in every room, ceiling fan. They turn on the fans. Ooh. Prabhupada saw us turning the fans on to dry the floors. No. Don't waste Krishna's energy. So you learn so much with Prabhupada, just being around him. Just being there. So 3 months, myself and a few others, we went to New York City, Brooklyn, Henry Street Temple. Very famous back then. I remember first days sitting. Prabhupada was on the Vyasasana. Of course, men were on that side. women were on this side, and the center's always clear. No one would be in the center, blocking Prabhupada's view of the deities. So all the men on one side, all the women on the other side. I went there with Kirtanananda Swami, very first Swami, one of the first devotees, one of the first devotees Prabhupada trained cooking. He was known as Kitchenananda. He was an expert cook. So I was there with him. So because I was with him, I got to be right there by Prabhupada's Vyasasan. Even though I was this young kid, young boy from New Vrindavan, I wasn't a book distributor, I wasn't temple president, a sannyasi, but I got to be right by Prabhupada's Vyasasan. First times I saw him. It was July, just like now, it was July 22nd. I was in the temple literally 3 months to the day. Moved in April 22nd. 3 months later, first initiation, July 22nd. And I remember Prabhupada giving lectures. So we're in this one, maybe 4-story house, attached. The whole block was just identical. They were called brownstones. They were all same houses. 4 stories, big places. Prabhupada's sitting on the Vyasasan and he says, what's the difference between this house? He said, on the house on the left, the house on the right, they're all identical houses. He said, what's the difference? This place is a temple. So we're serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Radha Govinda in New York City. I just saw them a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago. Just saw them, that place, different temple room now in Brooklyn, back in Brooklyn. They're back in Brooklyn as well. That person, time, place, and circumstance. I didn't know what a lota was. I'd find out eventually. It would be a year later when I saw Prabhupada's lota for the first time. Lota traveled around the world with him. His lota. The spiritual, everything is transcendental. Everything's doing service in the spiritual world. The grass, the breezes, the animals, the insects, the birds, everyone's serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So finally I got to see Srila Prabhupada. After 3 months of hearing about him, he was all of our hero. Saved us. 1970s, 1969, 1970, 71, 72. Prabhupada said he turned hippies into happies. In those days, they thought there were millions of Hare Krishnas in the US. There was a few hundred, but they were very visible. They were out on Harinam every day. It's what you did. Prabhupada's instructions in his letters telling the temple president, one person stays back in the temple, take care of the deities. One pujari. Everyone else out on the streets doing Harinam Sankirtan. As I was traveling around in Australia, this city, 5 different cities in a month, how do we get the people to become devotees? Indians, very easy. One friend tells the next, you're all working in the same offices. Come to this program. We're having a nice program. We have foodstuffs, sanctified food. They all come. But how to get the local people? I said, well, we all came from 2 things. Harinam. We saw devotees in the street. That's how I joined. I saw devotees chanting in a park one day. It was Earth Day. 1971 was the 2nd annual Earth Day. They still have it, April 22nd. That was the beginning of the green movement in the US. All this eco stuff we talk about. It started way back then, 1970. So we went to a park, my friend and I, just to hear local bands play rock music like everyone else was doing. And we were both in college.
New York.
Philadelphia. It came from Philadelphia, 100 kilometers south of New York City. It was a big city. So we went there. We were both looking for God. We didn't know he had a name or anything. I was raised, I told you, Catholic. We had our little catechism. That was like our Bhagavad Gita. And it had all the different instructions. One of the first ones was we were made in the image and likeness of God. In other words, God was a person. We're a person. We were made in his image. But they didn't know what the image was. They even had a picture, I remember, on one page in that catechism. They had God sitting in a chair. Not from USA, you don't know if you ever seen Lincoln Memorial. You know, there's Lincoln sitting in a big, big chair like a judge. Well, that's what they had, this picture of God sitting in the chair. He looked like he was judging. So that's what we learned in Catholic school. God was judging all of us. You go to heaven or you go to hell. Unless you haven't been baptized and you went to purgatory. That was an in-between place. But that was your choices. He was judging. So they had this God sitting in this chair, but his face was blank. They knew he was a person. Prabhupada at one time he even said Christians are Vaishnavas because they accept God as a person. They're Vaishnavas. But they didn't know who that person was. My friend and I, we were searching, doing different things. I was going to these born-again Christian revivals. They took place a lot in the South. African style dancing. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to feel God. I wasn't into philosophy. I didn't want to understand why there was a God. I was already taught there was a God. I believed that. But I wanted to feel his presence. I would go to these revival things and they're dancing, singing, sweating, and talking in tongues. That was another thing we learned. They would talk, this babble stuff. You didn't understand it, but we thought they would heard from the Holy Spirit. We learned about him in Christianity. Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Father, Krishna, the Son, was pure devotee, and Paramatma in the heart. It was the same thing, but no philosophy, watered down. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to feel that Holy Spirit was supposed to be there in my heart. Anyway, my friend convinced me to go see these crazy-looking people that were going around in a circle chanting, banging on drums, banging on cymbals, chanting this mantra. I said, come on, let's see them. I said, no. I said, come on, let's go see them. They're okay. He said, they look like they came from Mars. Big white tilak on their forehead. It was made with fuller's earth. You know, when you have your walls here, when you patch your walls, there was no chandan back then. There was no Indian stores, no devotee stores. They would go to the hardware store and buy this fuller's earth powder, white powder that you use to patch walls. That was the tilak. You could put it on 4 o'clock in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, it's still there the next morning, 24 hours later. It was the best tilak. This you put on 2 hours, you brush your fire, boom, gone. You know? That tilak was paint. It was like putting paint on your forehead. But he convinced me to go see them. And of course, I said, what are you doing? I was chanting the names of God. Oh, God, I'm looking for God. You found him. I found him, just like that. I found God. He told me everything about God. Told me his name, his address, his mother's name, father's name, what he does all day, everything, where he lives, just like that. I accepted all of it. Made sense. Sounded good. And they certainly looked happy. 3 months later, I'm in New York City, and I'm seeing Prabhupada on the Vyasa sign. That's all any of us wanted to do, is just look at him. Who this person from the spiritual world. You know, now you have Photoshop. You know how you have a photo. If you want, you just have the one person, everything else you kind of blur out. That's what it was like when you saw Prabhupada. Everything else just kind of disappeared. You just saw this transcendental person with this golden aura and this look in his eyes. Everyone that looked at him, and we all saw the eyes, looked like diamonds because they were always wet. Prabhupada's eyes always seemed to have tears ready to come out. And I was sitting right there on the floor. Kirtananda's right next to me. Hundreds of devotees packed into the temple room. If you can imagine 200 devotees in this temple room, and then others are looking in the windows, looking in the doorways. It's 40 degrees, 100-something degrees, hot and humid in New York City, July 22nd. Everyone, kirtan, Prabhupada's there. I go to these festivals now. When I was with Prabhupada, every day was a festival. Every day was Janmashtami when you were with Prabhupada. Everyone was in ecstasy every day in the temple room. You couldn't separate one day from the next. Every day. But for me, it was the first day. And I'm sitting right there, standing there. And the kirtan's done, and everyone has to get down on their hands and knees, offer obeisances. So now they're taking up 3 times as much room as when we're all standing there. But we all have to squeeze down. No one just stands there with their hands folded. No. You offered obeisances. And I just wanted to see Prabhupada, right where you're sitting in that chair. I'm down on my hands and knees. And I get down, and everyone's very, very respectful. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya, Bhutale. And I'm going, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namai Namaste Saraswati. Because I wanted to get up and look at Prabhupada again. I just wanted to see him. And that's what I did. And I sat up to look at Prabhupada. He was right in front of me. And when I sat up, I sat on this brahmachari's head behind me. He was offering his obeisances very sincerely, very nicely. And he pushed me. And he pushed me, and I flew right onto Prabhupada's lotus feet, like I was diving for his feet. He said, "What is the difficulty?" The name of my book. What is the difficulty? And I sunk down. We know, huh? That's also, you learn that right away. 1/10,000th part, the tip of a hair, the spirit soul. The tip of the hair, 1/10,000th part. He could make you feel that size, just like that. Again and again, he would make me feel like that over 2.5 years. When you become a little proud, he could smash you like a bug. Like a bug. That's what he did. What is the difficulty? He would say that. I heard him say that many times afterwards. He said it in a different way. Krishna consciousness is so nice. We chant, we dance, we take prasadam. What is the difficulty? Such a wonderful process. So I know we have a few minutes left. Breakfast at 8:45. It says right here. And I'll be here. I think I'm doing some evening classes and morning classes over the next few days. So we'll kind of continue. You see, I'm going to try to go a little chronologically, but I'll go here and there on the way. If anyone has any questions today, you can ask now. Yes?
Yeah. I'm reading the book of Vishnu Jan and Jananda, by ISKCON.
Radha Damodar.
Yeah, I'm at the chapter where these awful things happen in Vrindavan. At this time, apparently, you were with Prabhupada in India. So how did Prabhupada react to the first real gang attack against the Krishnas? Because before it was peaceful, and all of a sudden it was very violent because there was blood, some awful things. So how did Prabhupada react to you when he learned of this story?
What was his reaction?
Yeah.
I mean, when the temple was being attacked
Yeah.
by some of the neighbors, or they didn't. West Virginia is an interesting place. Pennsylvania, West Virginia. Moundsville, West Virginia. The temple, New Vrindavan, it's called McCreary's Ridge. That part of West Virginia was filled with many Irish immigrants. That's why it's McCreary. McCreary's Irish-based name, McCreary's Ridge. And they were very, still like that in that area. West Virginia is known as very simple people, very nice people, but anyway, they didn't understand Hare Krishnas at all. And in West Virginia, if you're not carrying a gun, there's something wrong with you. Everyone has a gun. Like in Texas, in the USA, there's a couple of states, everybody has guns. They have their trucks. At the back window of the truck, there's a gun rack, a couple rifles there you can see in the gun rack. So it's like that there. Anyway, they came and they had their guns and they attacked the deities. Fortunately, no one got shot, killed at that time. But that was one of the first times I was with Prabhupada at that time. I was from New Vrindavan, and that's when he said we needed to have Kshatriyas, devotees. Prabhupada said we're not pacifists. Devotees are not pacifists. We're Vaishnavas. But Vaishnavas were ready to protect one another as well. So he said there should be trained up people. And they started to do that all over in the society. It wasn't the only temple that was attacked. Atlanta, Georgia, I told you, the born-again Christian types, they were down there in the south of the USA, Atlanta, Georgia. They threw in, we call it Molotov cocktail. It's a bottle filled with gasoline with a little piece of cloth in it. You light that in, they throw it into the temple room. One devotee died. So Prabhupada said we have to protect. You have to protect the devotees, have to protect the deities. We're going through that now in India. As the situation gets more and more tense all around the world. India-Pakistan conflict. Just last month, there was some shooting there in the Kashmir area. Prabhupada said World War III would start between who? India and Pakistan. So as soon as there was a few shots fired, some people were killed. Oh boy, the devotees in India, we're all getting ready. What's going to happen? Every day's like that now. Every day, what's going to happen? Wake up in the morning, you check the newsreel to see, should I bother doing anything today? Or are we all going to die? But Prabhupada had no fear. And he said the devotees have no fear. Live or die, as a devotee, just carry on, do your service. This body, next body, doesn't matter for a devotee. But he said we had to have protection. I don't know a lot to say about French culture, but I can see they certainly like to fight. The French people like to fight. In the U.S., you see in the streets lots of fires going on. They're protesting something. Always some protest going on about something happening. But that's the material world, Kali Yuga. We're very fortunate. We just take shelter of the lordships. But in all facets, we should be able to take care of ourselves, prepare ourselves. And what did Prabhupada say to do? Farms. He said after the war, what did he say? Millions will come to the farms. Not as devotees, just to take shelter. He said you feed them, you let them work, and gradually they become purified. We see this. I was just in Australia. Now it's become very famous. New Govardhan in Australia. People are going there to work. Some of them, they get a room to stay. Called woofers. They used to call them woofers some years ago. You get a room to stay. You give them prasadam. Temples there. They see the temple. Books are everywhere. Some of them, over the course of a few months, completely changed. Taking prasadam, hearing the holy name. Prabhupada wanted the whole world become devotees. Big. Shama Sundar's book, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. He adjusted that. Wasn't chasing rhinos, it was killing the rhino, right? Kill the rhino. But nowadays that sounded a little, not correct, incorrect style. Chasing rhinos with the Swami. He was going around the world, trying to make the whole world Krishna conscious 15 times. But I think we follow here on the farm. Is this a farm? Okay. One more question?
I don't think you remember me, but I remember you. At that time I was in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, and you came, I guess, with Bhakti Bringa Maharaj. And we flew together from Dhaka to Jeshore. And then we were on with the car going to the Rup Sanatan Goswami temple, if you remember. And I was just sitting next to you, and you told me the first quality of Srila Prabhupada you appreciated. Is it the same now that what you said at that time? Is it the same quality? You told me the first quality you appreciate from Srila Prabhupada is that he was laughing like anything, to the point of slapping his tight with his hands.
Yes.
You told me that's the first quality you appreciated from him.
Yes. We'll tell that. We'll get to that story tomorrow. But yes, because as a devotee, we learned the principles of devotee. One of the first ones was he's quiet and he's grave. Devotee was grave. And we worked, all we did in New Vrindavan, Prabhupada at one time, Hawaii, they said, temple president had left. 2 years had left Hawaii. They were looking for a temple president. And I was with Prabhupada at the time. And his secretary said, well, maybe Sruta Kirti could be temple president. Prabhupada said, no, he's too easygoing. So Prabhupada understood my nature. So my nature was more or less joyful. Being a devotee was just work. So when I saw Prabhupada laughing, then I understood, okay, I'm in the right place. This is Krishna consciousness is joyful, happy. Prabhupada said, if you're not happy, you're not a devotee. Imagine. Devotee is joyful. And that's when I saw for the first time. I went there for my Brahmin initiation. That was 9 months after first initiation. Literally 1 year after I moved into a temple. And I saw Prabhupada laughing. He was laughing when I was telling a story. I was reading Krishna book to him. And it came to the point where Krishna was killing the demon. And there's 6 of us in the garden. And we're all just listening. Well, I'm reading, others are listening. Prabhupada's listening. But Prabhupada's listening and our listening was very, very different. And when Krishna killed the demon, Prabhupada started laughing. And his body started shaking like this, and tears are coming down his eyes, and he's laughing, and started slapping we say knee slapper. In America, we say it's the knee slapper. That's like the height of laughter. And that's when I thought, well, this is Krishna consciousness. That's what I want. I wanted some emotion, not just stiff, dry emotion. I am Italian descent after all. We have emotions. The spiritual world, everything's emotion. Say the emotion of devotion, Prabhupada said. His purports, his emotional ecstasies. All right, I think we need to stop here today. So, when's the next class?
This evening, you can do 7
This evening?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock this evening. So we'll hope to see everyone 7 o'clock this evening. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu ki.
Yeah.